Meeting is called to order. This is the agenda work session for Wednesday, February 5th, 2025. Board of Supervisors hearing room. Pursuant to ARS 38431.02, the public has had access physically to the meeting place 15 minutes or online 15 minutes prior to the meeting started. Any item on this agenda is open for discussion amongst those present. Members of the Cochise County Board of Supervisors will attend either in person or by telephone, video, or internet conferencing. Work sessions are a time for the county staff to inform and discuss agenda items with the Board of Supervisors, and public comment will not be taken. We will now do a roll call vote. District 1.
Crosby is here. Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Crosby is present via Microsoft Teams. District 2.
Here.
Ms. Gomez is physically present. District 3, Mr. Antonori is physically present. So we're all here. We have a quorum. Introductions. We have Stacy with us today.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and introduce yourself so people that are listening know who you are.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board, members of the public that may be listening in. I'm Stacy Fenhouse. I am the Cochise County Budget Manager.
All right. So if I can get I don't need to do a motion for this, right? Right. Now, so we'll just move straight on to agenda item number 1. Sharon, if you want to start out, kind of lay it out here.
Yes. So good morning, Chair Antonori, Supervisor Gomez, Supervisor Crosby. This morning we're happy to kick off our budget development process with the board. We every year go through a process with all of our departments, send out information. They put their budgets into our New World system, which is the database system we use as our general ledger. And then we go through a series of meetings with the board and work sessions to discuss those budgets in April, and then work through it in May, make changes, and we'll go over that timeline. But for today, we wanted to talk to the board and get any additional direction, since we have 2 new members and Supervisor Crosby has, I'm sure, additional thoughts from the past. So we wanted to make sure we kicked this off with the knowledge of what you're looking for this year versus what perhaps we've done in the past, and add to or remove as necessary. So we have a PowerPoint to go over what we've done, what we anticipate right now, things looking like. So if you'll go to the first slide, there we go. So the budget opens February 10th in New World for all the departments to start putting in their data. Budget closes in New World on March 31st. And by then, everybody should send to Stacy their funding requests. FTE is full-time equivalent. That's their employee inventory, their personnel inventory list, interfund transfer requests, and narrative updates for our budget book as to what their department does and their goals, etc. We have work sessions with the board in April with all the elected offices and all the departments, where you can go, they will provide to you their goals and go over their budgets with you, and their funding requests as well. Tentative budget then is scheduled for June 10th. We do have certain public notice periods that we have to hit. So we have plotted all of these meetings out to make sure we have our newspaper public notices in appropriately as to
What's the rule on the public notices now in newspapers? I thought David Stevens got that law changed.
No.
He didn't get that law changed?
No, we still have to put them in the newspaper. It's in a newspaper within the county. So
What newspaper is it within the county?
the Herald.
It's the paper of record.
The
for the
paper of
county.
record.
Yeah.
Is there any other, besides the Observer? Because we Observer, but that's part of Herald, and then you got the Tombstone and stuff, right? Those are
Yeah.
the newspapers.
It has to have.
So it's in the Herald?
Yeah, the Herald. And there's a series of public notices we have to do for that, for just the tentative budget adoption, and then for the final budget adoption, which is in July. We don't have that. Oh, yeah. So in July, we have the final budget adoption, July.
Yeah, well, by 1 July, right?
It's July
31st?
No, I don't have it in.
But the fiscal year starts 1 July.
We do, and the tentative budget, we work off that that once we pass the tentative budget, to be clear, we can't go up from there. We can go down, but we can't go up.
Okay.
So we work off of that tentative budget
For 2 weeks.
until we get the final approved. It's usually not a major problem for us.
Well,
in July we do that?
A lot
And
of
a lot of
times the legislature's late.
Yeah.
I haven't been there, done that. I
Right.
remember not approving a budget the first year I was there until October.
Yeah.
Uh,
So we push
so-
it as far as we can by statute, because we never know. Last year, I think the legislature approved in late May, the
Yeah.
final budget.
Okay.
So if we approve too soon, we
You have to
can't
go
go
back.
up.
Yeah.
It's a whole thing.
And it's the
Yeah.
whole thing.
Yeah.
So, and
Okay.
yeah, so we would like to keep this timeline for this year just because we've already plotted out our meetings and
Right.
those public notices.
So when you say workshop sessions, you're just giving examples here, like CCOM, it would be everything.
So there's work sessions with the
Public works.
recorder, with the assessor, with
Okay.
the courts. They come all together, all the offices of the courts presented in one.
Superintendent.
The sheriff, everybody comes before the board with their funding requests and explanations for their budget.
Okay.
And you can ask them questions. So, of course, then on August 18th, we have the tax rate adoption. That too is plotted out according to statute and all the required public notices.
Yeah.
And if we have to have truth in taxation hearings as well. So that's the budget timeline.
Do you know what those are, Kathleen? Truth and taxation.
No, what I,
So Arizona's got a law. So what they want counties not to do and county assessors not to do is play games with the evaluation of property. So we set there's an assessment ratio for residential, vacant land, commercial, industrial. And what certain counties are doing in the past is they would play games on the assessed value because they were locked in on the assessment ratios.
okay.
So anytime you sort of raise taxes, the truth in taxation is occurring because if you go up in the valuation a certain amount, it triggers truth in taxation review. And you got to show that you're not doing it to raise taxes by not raising taxes.
Got
Right.
it.
The board may choose not to raise the rate, but because the assessed value went up, the levy went up. So we
Right.
still
So,
want to do
so
it.
we have to show that we're not doing it
Playing
back.
games.
Yeah, explain.
Just to be open, yeah.
Yeah.
You open?
So those have,
Well, property values do go up.
Yeah.
Right. So there's ratios and stuff that change, but in the past it was to stop abuse where certain municipalities and counties would play games with the assessment, so they would tell their county assessor to, hey, well, is that property really $200,000? I think it's $250,000, so they would just milk out a little bit extra in the property taxes. So.
Got it.
And then tell their poor taxpayers that, oh, your property value went up like 8%, so that's not our fault. That's the game. So
Okay.
that's why the legislature put that in there. Hopefully we won't have that problem.
I don't, well, when we get our assessed value. Yes, that's
From Phil.
yeah. So
And
I'm
I'm
going to
sorry,
turn it,
on that point, when did we get that from the assessor's office?
Uh,
The timeline?
we get it on February 10th, actually.
February
I mentioned that.
Mhm.
So I'm going to kick it over to Stacy to continue through with the actual budget development process from her perspective.
Right. All right. So we include this information here for you guys to show that our state budget is actually in a healthy place coming into this fiscal year. Last year, we were projecting major shortfalls. And so we did some conservative efforts on our side in budget development. The environment has changed since last year. That's not to say that we're going to signal to departments to increase what they're doing.
This
But-
is the state's.
Yeah, this is the state budget. So this kind of thing affects, these are their projections. This kind of thing affects how much our revenues what we get from the state
Okay.
could be higher than last year.
If you remember, they mentioned it while we were up there that first week,
Yeah.
that Warren Peterson has said that he wants to do the $15 million per member thing again, which I hate that, like, really bad. That's not very conservative, but he thinks it is somehow. But
Yeah.
he wants every member to get $15 million that they can spend any way they want
Um,
if they vote for the budget. So it's a way to buy a vote to get the majority plan budget passed, which I'm not a fan of that. But if that's the case, our three reps could have, between the three of them, up to $45 million that they can decide on how to spend here
And
in
then
the
the other
county.
thing with Bisbee and Naco, because they're in LD 21.
Oh, you got them?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's right. I keep forgetting about that. I'm sorry about that.
No, I mean, I don't even remember that.
Yeah,
because
you-
That's like, we have
Yeah,
to
that's,
consider that
Yeah.
in our like
Mhm.
thinking, right?
Mhm.
And so is that part of that 1.6 billion? I mean, where?
no, it's part of the 935. So they're going to take it out of the surplus,
Okay.
not the rainy day fund. The rainy day fund is what happened after we had the big budget drop when the housing market collapsed back in 2008, 2010. So that's to keep the pain from that happening again, where we had to go slash $3 billion out of the state budget. But the 935 is where Warren wants to take. Senate President Peterson wants to take the money out of that to give each member the opportunity to go.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah,
That's from the 12 I had heard. So
What is it?
It was 12 when I had heard
Oh,
about it.
12?
Yeah, a few
I
weeks
heard-
ago, but
I
it
heard-
was 15.
I heard
And Frank, you would know this. How many members are there? And
90.
90.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, half of them aren't going to vote for the budget.
So there you go.
Right, so really, you need 31 and 16, right? So those are the delegation that you're talking about probably isn't going to vote for the budget, so they're probably not going to get the money.
Mhm.
There we go.
But that's what it's looking like, right? So maybe we need to talk with them and say, hey, we've got some priorities. I know we want to talk to Jason about getting him some money to fix some of the roads out here. And I know Mr. Crosby's crying about in front of Target, which I agree, that road is a disaster in front of Target in Sierra Vista, but that's a state highway.
Mhm.
So maybe Ms. Griffin or Mr. Gowan or Mr. Diaz can get ADOT out of their chunk of change to pave that road, and maybe we can get additional funds to pave or chip seal a couple other roads.
And in LD 21, the minority whip is from LD 21. And then we have, I think the other two House members are on transport. One of them is on transportation, both of them are on rural.
Yeah.
So,
But it's something to think about that may help us if we can get a little help from our state delegation to help, put the money towards roads, or maybe help us with our pension liability or
That would
something,
be,
Oh,
something-
that would be wonderful.
something like that. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
just something to kick around.
So one of the first things we ask for from the departments is their funding requests for the year. So these are individual items or projects that a department would like to submit to the board that go above and beyond their baseline budget. So these are new things, new projects, new positions, remodels, things like that. We have a form that they fill out. They have to give us all the information they have on how much it's going to cost, whether it's a one-time cost, a repeat cost. Do they know where they're going to get this funding in the first place? And then a description of everything. How it also aligns to the board's strategic goals is also on that form. So they have to be able to tie it in so that you guys can do a good analysis of, does it meet your guidelines and criteria? We asked for that by March 31st. Any funding request that has to do with IT fleet or HR from a department is also reviewed by IT fleet or HR.
So is that
to make sure
considered
they
like a
meet that.
capital funding request for stuff like that? Because it's like a tangible item.
It
or
could
something.
be. It could be a vehicle or it could be a position.
Oh, it could be a position.
Yes. Or like a remodel to their office area, things
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Okay.
So we receive those, and then you guys as a board discuss and have a work session on May 15th about those.
just about that.
Yep. Okay. Any questions on those? Okay. Another due out that we ask for is the FTE inventory. That's full-time equivalent inventory. This is a roster of the positions that the department has.
Full-time equivalent?
Yeah, it's just the
Okay.
full-time employees.
Yep.
People that are at least doing a 40-hour week.
Right. So the information that you guys can or we use and that you guys can glean off this report is the job titles, whether they're full-time or part-time, and what their percentage is, if you will. It's in that center red column there, and the right-hand red column. So if it's less than 1, then 75% or half. Anyhow. Then the annual hours, their hourly rate, their home cost center, whether it's split funded, so between like general fund and highway, or general fund and a grant, or if it's
Okay.
fully grant funded. Yes. And then it'll give the full name and the PCN control number that we have, or the position control number we have, and any vacancies. So this is a truncated version here so that it's a little sanitized
So-
for the.
If I could interrupt, so when you do total hours, that includes vacation time as well in that 40 hours?
Yeah, so an employee would work 2,080 hours a year, and if they take PTO, that's
How
so that's
about
part of it, 2,080.
and paid holidays as well?
Correct.
Is
Mhm.
calculated in there. So that's 40 hours times 52 weeks.
Correct.
Okay.
And then what is the vacation time? So do you get 2 weeks, 6, I mean, when you start off?
Probably varies by
It
senior.
varies by years?
It used to vary, but now it's 6.5 per pay period.
For
Per
everyone.
pay period.
Mhm.
Everybody?
For
For
everybody.
6.5 hours
Correct.
or 2 weeks.
Mhm. And then what's your sick?
Sick
That's
is
part of it.
40,
part of it?
that's
No, it's
Okay,
40 hours a year. And that's,
40 hours a year.
yeah, that's the minimum for statute. So we
So
are,
that's 2 weeks.
we are generous with our PTO, and the sick is then 40 hours. It does not carry over from year to year, though. So you have, at the end of the year, if you haven't spent your 40 hours of sick, it transfers into 40 hours of PTO, and you start new with sick. It's a
Okay,
way.
so let me ask.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm taking, so 6.5 per pay period is what in 52? I mean, I can't do the math. in
In
my head.
26 weeks, because it's pay periods of 26.
Okay.
It's roughly 4 weeks.
4 weeks off?
Yeah.
Or even if you start off in the first year?
Yeah. It's a
Big
recruitment
deal,
tool.
ain't it?
It's a recruitment tool. We really try to push our benefits because of our salary and market.
Well, how far is, you think the salary is off by?
6.5.
That's what we do. We'll talk about that.
Okay.
So,
When will you talk about that?
then, yeah, she'll explain the market salary.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll get there.
So
I'll get there.
let me just, so you've taken all your vacation time and you have 2 weeks of sick leave and,
Yeah.
all right?
One week, 40 hours.
Oh, I'm sorry, 40 hours. It's 1 week. Okay, not 2.
And then after, if they burn that week, do they have to apply for like short-term disability or something?
They can use FMLA, they can use their PTO. It just depends on their
And
situation.
they can't carry over if they've taken all their vacation and they have, like, say, they didn't get sick or whatever, that doesn't carry over the sick leave to the new year, but
It
they
doesn't.
buy them out.
No, so it doesn't carry over as sick.
It goes
You
into
roll into
PTO?
PTO,
So it's
So you're-
added to the,
to the PTO accrual.
How much are they allowed to carry on PTO?
28.
2,080 hours. However, if you were to leave, you only get a payout of
280.
280. Yeah.
but if you carry it over to, I mean, what are you allowed to carry
You
over?
technically could save up to a year's worth of leave if you wanted to, but we do have restrictions as to if you were to then exit the county, your payout for that. When
Yeah, they want to sell the leave back.
You don't get that full amount. You get a 280 hours as your maximum payout.
If you retire, you get 280 plus a percentage,
Mhm.
but just leaving is that.
Yeah, that was a change we did to keep guys from pension spiking.
Mm.
They're on their way out the door,
Mhm.
saving up all their vacation days and then cashing them all in to boost their final
Right.
Right.
paycheck.
Right.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, the sick leave is tied to specific laws that we have to follow
Right.
on that, which is why it's a smaller amount.
And all of these are done by the hour, right? People taking each 1 hour at a time.
Right.
Yeah, they don't have to take a full day off. They
No.
can take, if they run to the doctor, they take an hour or
Right,
something.
right.
So-
Yes.
And how many employees, what does the county do? Do we do punch clocks for the hourly guys and then?
So we have our system is ADP for payroll, and Anybody who's an hourly employee has to clock in and out.
So do you have a range, right? It's not a clock, but like, when I was on ADP.
We have an app. We
Yeah,
have an app.
I had that app.
Here.
And then if you're in a certain range.
So does the app tell you where they're at when they clock in?
Yeah, you
They
do.
do, okay.
Yeah, it does.
And we can limit it and say, no, you can't clock in on the app. We do have some punch-in clocks, so at the jail, they actually have a punch-in clock.
Okay.
We also have tablets spread out throughout the county on walls where people can punch in that don't have a computer or a phone. So they have that ability to
So
clock.
because I did ADP when I was working at Costco, right?
Mhm.
And so I had a certain radius, and if I was within a certain radius, then I could punch in, even sometimes as I was coming in, you punch in and then you park and you get your stuff together. So is that kind of how you have it?
We have that ability, but we don't have it set up.
You don't have it
Those
set up.
Those parameters of you're here, because some people are authorized to work from home. And
Okay.
it's such a variation throughout the county that
It did
each
make sense.
employee, each department's different, and it's very cumbersome setup for
Okay,
each individual.
gotcha. And PCN, what does that mean? Full name is?
Position control number.
So every position.
It's a job rec number. That's what I go by. Yeah.
Grissom. Mhm.
Every position has a number so that we track it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, any questions on this? All right, so one of the first work sessions that we sit down to do is.
This is the important.
Yes.
This is what our whole, yeah, because everything we do has to be based on what we establish as the baseline,
Mhm.
right? So this is the most important part of the budget here.
Right, this work session is a pretty hefty work session. We do our early revenue projections here. So with the information we received from the assessor for the assessed property value listings, that's kind of where we start things off. We start looking at the numbers. The last time I did that, I unplugged one. So. We also take our state revenue projections at that point. We'll get a number of data sources from the state and from the CSA to help us with those revenue projections from the state. And then we'll also take the department revenues that have been submitted on March 31st. And we start looking at those numbers.
Just out of curiosity, what's our sales tax revenue reference to last year for both the half cent for the general fund and then the other half cent for the jails? Is it been going, we getting more or less?
We're getting more.
We're getting more.
Yes.
It's going up.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's healthy. It's performing very well.
Okay, cool.
And so is the state shared sales tax.
Mhm.
Our TPT, well, help me out. I'm a little rusty on this. So when they do when they generally they break it out by population, right? So the cities and the counties, is it a standard between is it the same for us? Because I remember something about people in incorporated municipalities are counted differently from people in unincorporated counties, or do they not do that the same
I have
for the revenue share formula?
Specifically for the revenue share formula, I haven't seen any kind of data on whether they do that.
It's
differently for us, but
purely
I could-
population based, right? So, but what I'm saying is we don't get credit for the incorporated population service. The county doesn't count those in our shared
Okay.
revenue. That's what I'm getting at. Or
Oh.
do they? Or do they? Or do we get a piece of that?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
We'll look into that.
For some reason I remember
Mm-hmm.
if you're a county that has a lot of unincorporated people, there's sort of a detriment to that because the cities that are incorporated get a bigger share of the state share revenue. And it's an encouragement to incorporate. It's an incentive to
Yeah,
incorporate,
To annex, right?
to annex, right? So you want to do this. So that's why I was trying to figure out I can't remember what it was. And that was 15 years ago when I was
Yeah.
doing the budget stuff at the state level. But I know there's a penalty in there for unincorporated population. I can't remember exactly how it's calculated, but I know we get screwed now that I'm on the other side of the equation.
So when the mayor is talking to me in Douglas and wanting to annex Bay Acres and Perterville, and I asked Dan, are we going to lose out if that happens? He says, no. we
Get more
still
state
get-
shared revenue.
We still get, they would get,
Yeah, let's look into that.
Yeah.
because he said, no, we still get taxes even though they become part of Douglas.
Right, we do get their property.
We get the property.
We still, regardless, we get their property tax.
But
What I'm,
there's the share.
yeah,
is what I'm
so out of
talking
the 5.6 cent sales tax
Yeah.
that goes to the state, there's a formula. The state calculates And then so much, like the state keeps a little more than half,
Mhm.
and then the counties and the cities divide the other half.
That
So,
would be good.
but there's a formula that breaks that out. So, and I know it's population based and it's incorporated versus unincorporated, and there's some
Factors they're playing in there.
factors go in there. So I know there's a penalty for unincorporated population, and we have a lot. Well, Sierra Vista is also a good chunk of the county, but we do have a disproportionate unincorporated. So does Pima County, by the way. They have a lot of unincorporated population. They suffer under that as well. You know, so the county that does the best is Maricopa
Of
County,
course.
because they're like 90% incorporated. So they make out like fat cats.
Oh, sure.
So
Yeah.
anyways,
Yeah,
something to think about.
absolutely. Any
That's why the
questions?
mayors are incentivized to
Yeah, the annex.
grab as much
I see.
as they can.
Yeah. All right, so another hefty chunk of what we talk about on April 2nd or 7th is the expenses and the market or the salary market adjustments. So the departments are submitting on March 31st their expenses from baseline previous year's budget and then what they're planning for the next year. We go over those, and we also we look at our state shift costs.
Do we get a regional cost of living adjustment from the state, or from like this, what is the Eller School over at U of A does it? They used to do it for us when I was up at the state, where they would say, okay, here's the inflationary cost of living index for Cochise County. Here's what it is. And because like Maricopa County is going to obviously be ridiculously higher, right? So the housing costs are way higher, the food costs are way higher. And then some of the rural counties, it's much lower. Do they provide that to us?
So our salary market adjustments, we do a salaries market
But
survey.
what I'm getting at is, if we have a guy that's working here in Cochise County, he's getting paid $100,000 a year, and he gets a job offer up in Maricopa County for $120,000 a year, that doesn't mean he's going to have more take-home pay. What I'm getting at, so when a guy comes in and says, "Oh, I can get a job up there for $120,000," we can say to him, "Well, you're going to pay
Living is
this
30%
much more for a house. You're going to pay this much more for everything else. So you're actually getting a pay cut if you take that $120,000 job. You're better off disposable income wise staying here." Do we get that somewhere?
I think we receive it.
I think we can find it if we don't have it.
This is the negotiation tool. That's what I'm getting at, because I have a feeling we're going to hear, because I remember how this game is played. Oh, well, you know, our salary now is 18% lower than Maricopa County or Pima County. You know, I go, that's true.
But you save your money on not buying things. You have so much diversity in stores and restaurants.
Right. Well, it's housing prices, the big driver, right?
And
'Cause up there,
transportation costs.
yeah.
Mhm.
So this is some of the stuff you need to know when an employee comes in and tries to argue for another $20,000 in salary bump, and you know, you say, well, go. And I work somewhere where this happens a lot.
Yeah,
You know, so that's great, you know, and you say, well, here's what we'll do. We'll give you 3 or 8 or 5 or whatever percent, but you're not getting a 20% salary increase.
And
Right.
the month vacation is huge, I think.
Oh,
I mean, I'm
For
shocked
new
that-
hires? Yeah, that's,
Yes,
That's-
that's amazing. So when you stayed here for 10, 15 years, can you save more? So I mean.
you can save up to a year.
Take up to a year.
Because
And we
that's,
run a report to check.
Then you use it or
liability
lose it.
on that. Yeah. We don't have, after 2080 you do, but
Okay.
there's very few
Theoretically.
that have that much.
Theoretically, you could cash in 280 hours, is that
Uh-huh.
what it is?
Mhm.
And then not come to work for the rest.
Well,
For your life. No, technically,
technically, yes, but we haven't had anybody do that.
no, but but
yeah, but that's something that, you know, I think people think of. And I think you're right. You know, anybody, I was in Phoenix for a long time, and the wear and tear on my car, the expense and all that
Yep.
kind of stuff, that's a huge marketing
Right,
tool to recruit.
right.
You know, you want.
and the other benefits are good too.
Yeah, our
Yeah.
health benefits are,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
So-
yeah.
it's the whole package. We really try to promote the whole
Right,
package.
right.
It's
But I think
Sometimes
Like
people get
like what
caught
you
up
showed
on-
me the other day, the total compensation line, when we
Mhm.
calculated total compensation. That's Stacy has a Excel spreadsheet that she can type in your salary, and then it rolls in your healthcare benefits, your insurance costs, all that, your pension, your everything into it and says, this is what the total salary benefit is. So even though you're getting paid like 90 grand a year, your total compensation is like 126K or whatever. Right. So she's got that.
But it would be good as a tool to say, this is, like is the Eller School or Coaches
Mhm.
College.
Right,
say,
right.
This is what you get
And
not getting that higher budget.
Human Resources may have that, I just may not be familiar
Okay.
with it. So
The air is cleaner.
That's right. I mean,
you know traffic.
Yeah.
Chairman here.
Oh, I came down 191 this morning. I was pretty shocked with the number of cars around there. It wasn't quite
Chairman,
Maricopa County. Sorry. Somebody,
Tom would like to speak.
Tom wants to comment? Oh, Mr. Crosby.
Mr. Chair, good morning, sir, and thank you, Stacy, Joe, and Sharon, and anybody else that I missed there. I would like to talk about TPT or sales tax. I think that every city should be looked at individually, and I think Chairman Antonori touched on that, and I know that that's important to everybody that cares about their cities. I think the TPT rates and looking at a graph from month to month and year to year is a good measure of economic health for the city. I think that the flood control district needs to be examined for legality of establishment. That is legality of establishment like the jail district. And if we sequester the jail district money, then we need to figure out how we are going to readjust our total budget to make sure that while that jail district money is sequestered, that operations go on normally and so on. And I have further comments, and that is based on ARS 42-17-151, and I will read that, but perhaps a slide of that can be fired up. That is ARS 42-17-151, and that has to do with page 2 of the presentation, which is adoption of the tax rate by the Board of Supervisors in the month of August. And I'm just going to read what this is about. County, municipal, community college, and school tax levy. On or about the third Monday in August each year, the governing body of each county, city, town, community college district, and school district shall fix, levy, and assess the amount to be raised from primary property taxation and secondary property taxation. And so that happens every year. However, I would like to emphasize what it says in paragraph A, on or before the third Monday in August each year. It does not say that you have to wait until August of that year to establish the levy. And in my opinion, it makes way more sense to set our rate earlier than August and have department heads plan accordingly instead of department heads telling us what they hope they get and possibly being disappointed with the rate and the levy that we determine. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Well, I get you that. I agree with that as well because, the tax bill notice goes out shortly after that where you get the little postcards.
And we do that tax rate adoption on August 18th, partially, I think, because we do all the tax rates for the whole county.
Right.
And we're getting information.
And
That month of July is pulling teeth to get information from special districts and
the
make
county
sure.
is required by law to send out those postcards
Right.
to tell you. So she's got a deadline and we've got a deadline to get her deadline.
Mhm.
So what Tom is saying, Supervisor Crosby's saying is the sooner the better. And it also drives the budget. So if we can do it before we do the final approval of the budget is I think what, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Crosby, that's what you're saying. Before we do the final budget, having that set is what you're.
Well, the wording, if you look it up, the wording's pretty plain, on or before the third Monday in each August. It doesn't say you have to wait.
I'm talking about the mechanics of it. You're suggesting so that all of the departments understand and finance understands exactly what the baseline is going to be based on that number. That final budget decision is going to establish that based on what we determine to be
I understand where Supervisor Crosby's coming from. My concern is moving that date. We would not have all the information we need from all the districts that the board is approving the tax rates for by that time.
But can we tell them to send it earlier?
No, we don't need to do that. We're only setting it for ourselves, just for the
Oh, just
county.
the
We're not trying
county
to set it
primary
for
tax
everybody
rate?
else.
Oh, okay.
And then again, we've plotted out our public notices. I can't answer that right this moment. If you wanted to move it, I would have to really work with staff to see what the impact would be. And if we could, I'm working through some things in my mind and it would be a challenge, but I understand what Supervisor Ross is saying.
Let me ask you a question on Coaches College. We collect taxes for them.
Yeah.
We don't have any supervision on it, right?
The treasurer does.
The treasurer, she collects it,
Right.
and then she pays it to the college directly, right?
Right. Well, you see the breakout on your,
Yeah.
your.
Oh, I don't own property, so I haven't, but I should look at my parents. But I've had a lot of complaint how much Coaches College gets. But that's something that's set by who? The
By
state?
their governing board.
By their governing board.
Special district.
It's one of those, so like, this is, so there's no way we can look at that or we have an EO.
No.
No, so it's totally something that all that the county has involvement with is collecting the taxes and
Correct.
then giving them the money.
Correct.
That's amazing. That's kind of like an independent agency.
Well, they're special district.
Well, if you look at
Yes,
the last,
special district.
that's where the big,
So who has overseen of special districts being set? The state?
so,
Well,
so counties somewhere in the past have referred to the ballot, the establishment of special districts. So just like what happened with the jail district, for
Right.
example. So when they wanted to set up a community college district, under Title 11, the counties are required to fund colleges and jails and all that stuff under our authority.
Right.
Some counties, to offload budget impacts, have decided to set up special districts, like flood control districts and
Coaches College is.
Cochise College's library districts is another one, right? So that offloads the general fund piece of it to a special district. In some cases, those special districts have their own governing board, like a fire district, for example,
Right.
or a Cochise College community district. So those guys and gals get to determine the rate at which they want to tax. And we have no oversight on it. Once it's established,
It's done.
it's done.
it's a
Yeah.
done deal.
The
And
only-
that's in Title 48, that's in
Yeah.
Title 48 of the statutes,
So
all the rules.
They're like a
related to
little
special
dictatorship.
districts.
They could be.
They're
They're
elected.
they're still subject to voter control through elections, but yeah.
And they
Elections.
serve,
But-
it's, if anything, some
that
people
makes-
say special districts are even more local control because you have a fire district that is
Which,
in this
let me tell
particular
you, in
neighborhood.
doing my app, trying to get information on the fire district and who's there is almost impossible. I only could get a third. And there were some that didn't even have anybody on there. So that, in a sense, kind of is counterproductive to you have local control. And with the governing board of Cochise College, they're all elected, but it's very strange because we live in a place that doesn't get very information, how that's done, and everyone's like, what?
So we don't have a county fire department. So that's the problem. We don't have a county ambulance department, right? So we only have in statute the sheriff's department, right? So that's it. So the rest of that is provided usually through municipalities. And the problem with that is they tend to only stay within their boundaries. So you have to have fire districts to cover.
And then what happens when you don't get people to run? Then you still have a fire
They
district.
go under. Some of them go under.
Some of them do.
Yeah.
Sometimes if they have vacancies, the board of supervisors has to appoint someone.
So where
but
does the
then
money
again, it
go?
goes control.
Okay.
They control. Yeah.
I know it's important, it is, but I don't want to get too far off.
Well, I know you don't want to get too far, but there's some questions I have to know
Mhm.
the answers to so that I can then go on the path with you. So I'm just asking, if the fire district doesn't have anyone there, where does the money go to?
I think the treasurer keeps
Probably,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
The treasurer
That's a
holds
question
it,
for
so
the
then we
treasurer.
would-
Yeah.
And then the board of supervisors probably have to get involved in the state and, yeah, but we haven't gone through that process, so I don't have any direct experience.
Very interesting. Okay.
But yeah, back to salary market adjustments real quick. I want to go over this because this is one of the points where we do actually in this process seek out guidance from the board, which direction they want us to go on that. So that's something we'll look for.
That's the first meeting of the March 31st due March 31st.
So that is provided by HR. And then we kind of smushed that study together with the FTE inventory to start doing some calculations for you guys to look at. Okay. All right. So one of the things that we have received already for preliminary numbers is our annual expenditure limit level for next year. So these fluctuate very slightly sometimes from what the final enacted is, but right now we're looking at $83,910,841 being our expenditure limit. And these are our covered expenditures. So there are a number of categories that are excluded from this calculation.
I was going to ask you, but that's some small. Okay, so what are those? Do you have them in the following page?
No, I don't have them in the following
Okay.
page, but I do have material I can give you that shows you what the breakout is.
So 83 million is covering, and then there's how many hundreds of, there's what is left over, and that's excluded from this, is what you're saying. And can you give me a list of what that is?
Absolutely.
When we have our work session on revenues and expenditures, we can go into more detail.
Okay.
Absolutely.
As to how we see the budget this year breaking out of what's excluded and what's part of the expenditure.
All right, so one of the information points that you had asked for, Mr. Antonori, was contingency use over a 3-year period. So we wanted to give you that information here as well.
So every year in our budget, we have a healthy contingency fund, partially for those unexpected expenses that come up throughout the year. Also, we keep it rather healthy in case we need to use it for payroll should property taxes not come in as expected, or if there's a downturn in the economy and we need to make some adjustments. So
You get sued by the Attorney General,
things like that.
things like that, and hire lawyers.
Some kind of
So
statement.
what, that's
I
the,
have to put it.
so, you know, this is what I refer to this as management reserve, right? Because you always have some sort of unforeseen thing that comes up. So I was just curious to know what our little buffer amount was, our rainy day fund,
Yeah.
basically for the county is. So that's what that is.
Yes.
So almost 20 million bucks.
Yes.
And we don't,
We have not touched it this year.
we haven't touched it.
Well,
So this is general fund contingency use here, and then the next 3 slides, because they were quite a bit.
Can I just ask a question? So you had 17, I mean, does it roll what you don't use rolls into the next
Right.
year and then you either add or deduct from that?
Right, and you'll see sometimes there's a difference between the ending balance and beginning balance, because in between creating the budgets, somebody
came
didn't
up.
use it.
Right.
And so we roll in more than we
So
started.
right now, going into
Right.
25, we have 19. Let's just
yeah,
say.
it's good to keep, this,
I agree.
just for a planning rule that I use when I do, like, I do 5-year contracts that
Right.
roll into subsequent years. So I tend to keep double the rate of inflation rolling over, right? So if you're, whatever and inflation the last couple of years was kind of crazy, right? So
Right.
you want to have that plus double the inflation rate on top of that for the next year. So for 19 million, whatever inflation is, like, let's just say 5%,
Mhm.
that would be, what's 5% of that? That's 4 million?
That we would want to.
No, what is it? Help me out, finance person. Whatever, what's 5% of 20 million? 5.5,
Half would be 10, so 5.
it's 500K.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So that would be, you would add that, so you want at least that much more for next year.
So we add that on and as soon, when do we add that
After
on?
we do the budget, it
After
would
we do
go,
the
it
budget,
would go
it
in,
would go
whatever's
in.
left
Yep, whatever's
over
left over. Yep.
goes
I
in.
gotcha.
So we would try to keep that growing by double the rate of inflation, because if a catastrophic
It
event
makes
happens.
sense. No,
Well,
absolutely.
that would be the smart thing to do.
Yeah.
Now, there's times when, as we've seen, where
Can't.
the rain comes
Yeah.
and you have to tap into the rainy day fund, and then you whittle that down, but you need to try to build it back up
Yeah.
as soon as you can. So
And you'll see that happening in the capital projects stuff. So we've had a number of capital projects over the last couple of years that
And then,
have drained that down.
and then
some.
there's a point you get at, and this is like where the state's at right now, right? So they have a rainy day fund that is probably sufficient to handle problem, right? So then you hit that, whatever that cap is, let's just say. So then you don't have to pour money into there anymore, and you could
Right.
rebate your taxpayers, or you could put it in roads, or you could put it into something that you want to put it in. So I don't know, we'd have to sit down with Stacy and figure out what that number is.
Mhm.
It's a percentage, I would say probably 25% of the overall budget. Once you hit that number, then we probably don't have to add to the rainy day fund anymore. I don't know what that number is. We'd have to, it goes off of risk and what the past history shows, how bad your hits were. There's a certain,
Right.
once you're above that, then we could take that and say, okay, we're going to either do a tax cut, or we're going to go do a capital project. We're going to go pave roads or build something, or,
Yeah, that
but,
makes sense.
but I don't know what that is.
So one of the things that we've done
That's
in
for
the past
discussion for another day.
is, pay down our PSPR.
Oh, that's right. I keep forgetting about
We
that.
have that
We got to
four-year
pay the
plan.
pension fund now.
Mhm.
So that-
Yep,
that-
yep.
Whichever
Yeah.
grows
Yep.
all the time.
And that was a strategy we chose to
Right,
put
so that's
together.
what you're doing.
Yeah.
No, but that's smart. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Chairman,
Chairman.
Supervisor Crosby.
Sir,
Hey, Mr. Chairman, I was wondering what inflation rate you had in mind when you're talking about inflation, and I had a little further comments, which is our priorities have to be determined by the Bill of Rights, which our foremost duty is to protect individual rights. Department heads and employees may generally have to choose between maintaining and or increasing salaries and benefits versus increasing personnel. And I just looked real quickly at the first website that came up, and I came up with these figures for inflation, and I was curious what inflations you were thinking of, Mr. Chair. In 2021, 7%. In 2022, 6.5%. 2023, 3.4%, and 2024, 2.9%. And that concludes my comments. Thank you, sir.
so we go off of the federal inflation rate, which isn't exactly accurate. But it's because it doesn't include gas, it doesn't include fuels. There's exclusions that are in there, and it's based off the consumer price index. So there's a lot of things that aren't included in that inflation rate. So it's artificially low, generally. But we want it artificially low, because if it's artificially high, then everybody's going to come in and want a pay raise, and
Right.
so that's the. Again, we have this opportunity to get another time to discuss
Okay.
when we get the brief from the HR folks on what they think the market adjustments are and inflation and everything. But generally, whatever the COLA rate is, the federal COLA rate somewhere between 1.5 to 3.5. It depends on what the year is. So it's like 2%, whatever people get for like Social Security or
Social
whatever.
Security, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of a basis for that too.
Okay.
The further, I don't have slides for the rest of these, but for the further work sessions, were there any questions on what's gone over in those? The elected offices and departments are on between April 15th and 22nd. So we have some departments, we usually do the electeds first. Courts will go first, sheriff will go, treasurer will go, and then we get down to the smaller departments. They're coming to you guys with, half hour or 1 hour time slots.
And usually that starts like in March, right? March to April.
April.
April
Yeah.
15th.
Because we want to, they have submitted all their information to Stacy as of March 31st. We need time to compile that
Right.
information and prepare presentations and give you as much information as you need.
Mhm. So those all happen in that little April timeframe there. And the next work sessions are May 1st and 14th. So May 1st is the CCOM one. That one has its own special work session because it's kind of a large beast.
So are we going to have, I had her name written down here.
Tammy Jo?
Tammy Jo, yeah. Is she going to be coming in for that?
Yes,
Yep.
that'll be-
How about Miss Graham too?
Yep.
To talk about the HR stuff?
Absolutely. Yep, that'll be up in the one, probably between the 17th and 22nd on
Yeah.
those ones.
That's going to be interesting
Yeah.
to see how that's all.
It is I don't, tell me if I'm whatever, but CCOM is part of budget. Now Douglas is the backup for CCOM. Do they get any money to help them with their equipment and stuff since they are the backup for CCOM?
So we did get a grant last year to upgrade the radio equipment at Douglas to tie them in as the backup for CCOM.
Okay, so then when we get that grant, that happens, then they'll actually officially be the backup. Because they
Well,
still have been, but they
The
don't.
city pays for the operation though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I believe they already are officially the backup.
But
But
now they just.
They'll be a more efficient backup.
Okay. Well, that makes, because if we're relying on them to be the backup for the whole county.
That's the other thing, Stacy. So how about all the grants that come in? Is that calculated in the revenue projection, all the grants?
Yes, if they
Because I
have-
know some of them run out, right? And we have some employees that are,
Fully
Being-
grant funded.
yeah,
Right.
fully grant funded. So do we have a
Yes, so
mechanism?
the departments will be submitting not only their general fund expenses, but
Right.
their special revenue account or fund expenses as well. So we'll have those kind of figures in there.
But
So
do we-
we'll know which ones are coming up or which they all want us to fund for the next year because they don't, their grant is running out.
And that would be, if it's not a general fund funded position that moved over to a grant, if they need to absorb those grant positions back over into the general fund and they don't have anywhere for that to go, that would be a funding request.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. So that mechanism.
So when we
triggers-
do that, do we tell the employee
Yeah.
that gets fully funded that you're
Yes.
contingent and at the end of the year, you could be,
Yes, they.
do we offer them a severance of any kind?
No.
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 At the end,
Because they
at the
moved
time
here.
of hiring, they are informed that it is a grant funded position and they sign an acknowledgement waiver.
Can I ask, I guess that would be an HR request to see what that language is, because I've had several people in the sheriff's department, I moved here and, and then the expectancy from what I can understand from the people is that they're going to be funded by us. So I would just like to know what that language is,
Yep.
that is real
Pretty
clear.
Yeah, it
And
is.
so that I can say, hey, but.
You sign the paper?
Yeah.
Yeah,
sign
and
the
that's
paper
why
that
we
says-
get the paper signed.
And there's no is there any kind of moving, relocation expenses that are paid?
Not officially, we don't have a policy on stipends. We've been looking at that to see if it's appropriate and affordable for the county. It's a policy we would like to bring to the board once we have something that we feel we can equitably.
So if you want to bring somebody in, you're talking, not if somebody's going out. Generally, you don't pay.
Well, the
Yeah.
other thing is I've been in situations or seen back, of course, in the bureaucracy where if you get a relocation straight one way or the other, right here at the end or at the front, they assumed that they were constantly going to be funded. Then for some reason, the funds didn't come in through grants. Then they gave them a stipend to go somewhere else because the assumption was that they were going to be forever. So that's what, in my conversations with these people, they've led me to believe that, nothing was ever said to them. They may not be as absorbed into the general fund. So just for me to be more educated, I like to know, it was in the
We
first
can get that.
paragraph. Yeah.
What's the BDI terminal? What is that?
So
Bisbee Douglas.
Oh, Bisbee Douglas.
international, yes, we remodeled the terminal.
Oh, the airport terminal.
Mhm.
Right.
And
Chairman.
then BDI well is related to the well. that-
Right. Well, they were talking about that.
Do you need Supervisor Crosby?
Supervisor Crosby likes to speak.
He has a.
Oh, Mr. Crosby, go ahead.
Hey, how you doing? Mr. Chair, last year, the Board of Supervisors increased by 2% the property tax rate. And that increase, in my opinion, should go away. And what was collected in that 2% increase should be applied to PS, PRS, and corp pensions. Last, I looked, the pensions between Sierra Vista and the county amounted to an $80 million liability. So this is something that we have to think about because it has to be paid, even though it isn't a debt because no loan was taken out and no interest is being collected. It is still a liability. The other thing about it is not like a mortgage in that it does not necessarily go down when you pay on it. It could still go up when you pay on it. So that's a very important consideration. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That concludes my
Yeah.
comments at this time.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was going to let everybody know is I would like to see that property tax increase be eliminated as well and just go back to operating
Under what we had.
under what we had, right? So
what we can do is.
And that's why I was asking Stacy about the revenue projections and if we're bringing in, so we could probably absorb that possibly just from the revenue that we got. If we have an increase of 6% in revenue, that
Right.
solves that problem.
That's
At this point in time, we have to wait until we get that data.
I got you. But I'm saying one of the things,
Something
and I
we
agree
can-
with Mr. Crosby, I am 100% in favor of getting rid of that and reversing that property tax increase.
So what we could do is when we have that revenues and expenses projection
Right.
work session, present to you two scenarios, one with keeping the rate flat and one with a 2% decrease.
Right. And then to Mr. Crosby's point, I also agree with that as well. Any revenue that, because we can't, it's already been, the tax bills have been sent
Right.
out.
Mhm.
So any revenue that's come in from that, put that into the pension. Yep.
I have to look at how that's a scenario.
We can look at it,
Yeah.
yeah. I'd have to.
You know, when I'm looking at this BDI well,
Mhm.
so that was $1,325,000 for the remodel of the terminal, the wells, and so.
There's a
I
lot
mean,
going on at BDI.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
went out there. I was a little disappointed, and I mean, because I remember that terminal well, and it's too bad that it couldn't be brought to, or some of the pieces, you know, to its beauty at the time. It
Mhm.
was one of the most prettiest Art Deco lobbies I'd ever seen. So there's a lot going on there. But at one point, so that was spent in the past few years.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, when you say well not used, what does that mean?
In FY '22, we used no contingency money for the BDI well.
So
There was.
do we,
Study or something, so there wasn't any activity.
The terminals, I mean, that place is such an opportunity for development.
I got you, but do we make money on it?
Well, I think we use. We
Yeah.
do.
No, to cover what we're spending on it? That's I mean, when I say,
Return on investment.
I'm looking at it as make money
We're not
Right.
there yet.
above the cost, right? So I'm not, I know if we spend $1 million and we make 300K, we just lost $700,000. That's the world I'm living in.
Okay, so I think what the problem was is BDI was left to just completely go down the hill. It is an opportunity to make a lot of money down the road. So right now, when I went and took the tour, they're renting it out. There's now, I think, it's pretty amazing. I would advise you to get a tour.
What is it,
from
more
downtown.
civil aviation and private aviation, or is it?
Kind of combination of both with, I believe, down the road.
I mean, it's like the
international.
perfect Border Patrol,
And if when the port of entry.
rent a field, rent
Well,
an
they have
airport.
The fire department, they have like the
forest.
forest is there. There's a guy that is leasing and did a lot of investment. I mean, he made that terminal incredible
Mhm.
at his own expense.
Okay.
Has,
Yeah.
huh? Yeah, it's ours, but he put a lot of
Mhm.
investment, and he's painting planes. And then now a Tombstone production company wants to go and rent the other one.
Oh, to make like a movie set in there?
Yeah,
Oh, really?
exactly. And then, because they have the long length of runways, you can land. I mean, Raytheon has a spot out there.
Yeah,
They
we got
just-
one out in Benson too.
And it's quite nice. And then they have the terminal that they rent out. There's several offices within there. I mean, if we do an economic corridor on 191, that could be really, I mean, it could really help, and especially with the port of entry, whenever we get that done, because that's another, losing that grant. I don't care what people tell me, until the money's in the bank, you don't have it, you can think you have it. But now we may not have a road.
Had the state not lost the UAV test center to Texas, it would have been an ideal, but we blew it. The state blew it. And Texas ended up winning the
Okay.
UAV test,
So we have to think of ways in BDI could be.
even though we
used
got
to-
the perfect.
Yeah. Mhm. So I can see it as an investment to future making profits on that on that airport, but we have to be on top of it and we have to think about it. So anyway, that's my.
I'd like to go out and check it out though.
You should.
I need to head out there.
Dan Cotsworth would be happy to give you a tour.
Oh, Dan is in charge of that? That's not under Jason?
No.
How's that work? He's the public works guy.
Development services, because he's finding customers to come.
Oh, he's the sales guy.
Yeah.
He's the business development guy for
Yeah.
the airport.
And I would really like us, not now, down the road, to just do a work session on what we can do with BDI and how we can start strategizing with a new port, with maybe, with this whole, you know, the borders are coming here. I mean, there's just so many opportunities that I think we really have to look outside the box.
Absolutely.
And that would be, you know, I just think it's very important that all three of us are involved in this and it's not one-on-one.
No, I agree.
Because then you can, you know, bounce ideas off each other.
Mhm. We can do that in the future.
Do you put down you have a little list of all the things we say?
I hope we're writing down.
Yeah. You're writing
Because
this down.
I see them pick up their pen and I don't know.
So do we have a CCOM work session coming up to talk budget with them? 'Cause are
Yes.
I still don't understand how that thing gets funded. That's the thing.
We can break it all down.
Yeah,
for
I got
We
you
will
on
have
that
a
one.
work session and break it all down
All
for you with their
right,
budget.
so,
And can it also show, like, I know the Buffett Foundation gave money for that, right?
Yes, for the building.
For the building. So what year was that they?
Oh, gosh, probably to 2016, 16, 17,
Yeah,
something
somewhere
like
in that
that.
range.
oh, another thing I just thought of, it just popped in my head, because we talked about it, I was looking at here. Our subscriptions,
To,
anything. So all that, we belong to all these groups and organizations and like
Oh, those are memberships.
memberships or whatever. Yeah, can we kind of look at those and then,
Yeah.
does anybody do, or is it up to us? I don't know, it might be up to us. It's sort of an analysis of what we get out of that membership.
are you talking about like the County Supervisors Association?
Yeah. And the Arizona Association County and the Eastern Arizona Association.
Right,
Counties.
so it is up to you
Yeah,
because those are board-driven memberships.
I got you. That's something that we're going to probably have to talk about.
Yeah.
But I mean, what are we getting? I mean, I don't know. I haven't been here. Tom might know.
Well,
you know,
Tom doesn't go to them. So I mean,
Yeah, so-
Peggy and Ann. So like.
That's the thing. I don't know what we get out of it.
I'm
If
gonna
we're getting
go-
something, if there's a benefit,
Yes.
you know, even knowledge, right? Knowledge is power,
I feel
right?
CSA is the most knowledgeable.
I think that I am getting some out of that.
As far as
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've asked Craig. I've called him like 5 times in the last 3 days.
I've
Yeah.
found.
So he-
They're very resourceful.
So I'm using him and those guys up there. So and he snickers when I talk to him because he knows what I'm up to. He understands my evil mind because I'm asking him, I'm building my case of data for stuff, you know, so
I'm going to go to the Eastern County one this month to see what it's all about.
yeah,
That's
but that's what
all.
I'm getting at. So we got to
Yeah.
figure out some of these like the Arizona Association of Counties, they're on not my big fan list because that was the group that was pushing all the election reform stuff, not necessarily with the knowledge of the Board of Supervisors. And they were going in behind, and it's all the other entities within the county, and it's more of a bureaucrat sort of conduit versus an elected official conduit, where the CSA is like an elected official conduit to the legislature, and Arizona Association of Counties more like
And
no offense, don't take it the wrong way. You know, but it's like the county managers and the treasurers and the staff that work in the elections department. And
Because,
Yeah.
yeah, it would be interesting because if you would say your value between the CSA and the Arizona County.
For me, as in my role.
Yeah.
Now, other elected officials like the treasurer or
yeah, they're going
they
to,
may have other opinions. and I
take it
don't
out of their
get
budget.
that.
Yeah.
they want to go to those meetings.
So, and the National Association of Counties, I mean, I would,
Again,
Do we
that's
get
just-
insurance out of that or some
No,
other?
they're another resource hub, a lobbying group, if you will, for counties on the nationwide level. So if they go for, like in DC, they do.
well, it'd be
legislative
interesting,
talks.
like to say, okay, we need somebody to go additionally to lobby for the port of entry.
Right.
And so how would we get on there?
Yeah,
Straight.
it's about involvement,
It's
we're
about
members and it's.
Yeah, we
up
got
to-
to, I don't know how to do that. Though. That's what I'm trying to, so usually my stuff is easy to do that, right? You spend money on something and you see a rate of return of benefit. So I have a ROA chart I can build to calculate this up, but you can't put an ROI chart on this stuff.
But this is
Right.
one of the issues that I'm finding out is it's how involved you are, like you said, and how much you use it. If you don't use it, if you go to one meeting a year, then that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But if you use them to get something done,
That's what I'm
That's
getting at. How do you
right?
put value on that though? That's what I'm saying.
And-
Put a
and I
dollar
think-
amount on that.
and I think the
Yeah.
thing is like, I'm going to find out when I go to the Eastern Counties Association, what exactly do we get out of that?
Mm.
I think the National Counties ones, because there is some value to having a voice on the Hill
We
in
have-
some sense,
Well,
right?
we have access to members of Congress though, so.
Yeah, so maybe we don't, that might be one that we can ask.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So that's something we got to look at though,
Yeah.
but that's going to probably be we probably need a
meeting on.
work session just
We'll
to,
have a work session again because those memberships come up at the fiscal year.
right, that's what I'm
We'll
getting
have
at.
another one to review.
So
So
we need,
maybe that's a thing that we can.
do we have the
look
updated list?
Not handy, but you did approve it at the.
Yeah. Can we get copies of that?
Sure.
Shoot it out. Just
Yeah.
email it to us.
Yeah.
So we all have it. And that way we also know who we signed up for, because I can't remember who I signed, who I signed up for.
at.
Yeah.
There's on the Mexican Commission, it's going to be really important but it also, I want to see the value because I don't see them doing much but meet every third quarter and what are they producing? So,
Right, they haven't really started up this year yet.
yeah, and there's something, but then I'm not sure, so I need to get a number and start asking when the heck are they having meetings because this is important, nobody's doing anything, so anyway. Okay. So
So
that-
what I've learned from you guys today, I should say, not you guys,
That's okay. We
our
are-
goals for looking at the budget by our work session of April 7th. We'll present some information regarding eliminating the 2% property tax rate that was passed last year, rolling that back. And also, just for the sake of comparison, what a flat rate would look like.
Okay.
And then we will look at how we can put that, what came in, the revenue from that 2% that was in effect this year, into the PSPRS and see what impact that has on our current budget. And we'll also do a work session on those memberships for the fiscal year review renewal. Is there additional information I should?
Let's go over. The grants that we talked about how that's going to be explained to us, right?
Mr. Chair, Crosby has further
Sure.
comments.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I wonder if Stacy can look up for us the PSPRS for Fry Fire Department, Sierra Vista Fire Department, Sierra Vista Police Department, and the Sheriff's PSPRS and the Sheriff's Corp unfunded pension liabilities, and get that to each of us supervisors, please. And I'll be glad to email those to you if you'd like.
Yeah, so what are you getting at, Tom? So the shared liabilities is what you're trying to calculate?
Okay, so the unfunded pension liability. So each of these has a unfunded pension liability, and for people near Sierra Vista, they either have Fry Fire Department or they have Sierra Vista Fire Department, and the last I looked, both of those were about equal. So what I said earlier about pension liabilities was for people in Sierra Vista, in the city limits of Sierra Vista, their total unfunded liability that they are responsible for between the city and the county was $80 million last time I looked. And so the figures that Stacy is likely to come up with are for the end of last fiscal year, and that's generally as up to date as we can get. So 8 months later, we're going to get 8 months ago's estimates.
Sure. And just to be clear, the county, I know Supervisor Crosby is aware of this, the county's only responsible for the sheriff's office, PSPRS, and for
Right.
liability, but he's looking, it sounds like, for his constituents, what their
Right.
total bill is.
You were also.
Yes, indeed. If I could, back some time ago, I sent out, or I created a PowerPoint about this, and this was prior to the most recent increase in sales tax. But at that time, the PSPRS debt for the city of Bisbee was upside down in comparison to their total budget. They owed more on their pension liabilities than their whole yearly budget. So there are other municipalities that are in bad shape. Benson and Wilcox are not in bad shape. They have been very, very responsible with their money and their PSPRS issues. That concludes my comments. Thank you.
They went up for a bond,
a
right?
bond, so
Yeah.
they paid off their unfunded liability at that point in time.
Mhm.
And then several cities across the state did this.
Mhm.
And then they have a different debt of the bond debt. And then, of course, your unfunded liability can still occur
Right.
at that point.
They should get
Also,
their state delegation to
Gilman-
vote for the budget.
There you go. There you go.
When you
Yes,
start
it was just-
going into debt to pay off your debt, you're heading for Weimar Republic territory, and I don't think that's a good idea for anybody.
My dad always used to say, you don't use credit cards to buy food. You only, you know, you shouldn't use them, but if you do, don't use them to buy food because it's gone. You know?
Yeah.
That was always like you don't bond to pave roads, you bond to build roads. You know, you don't bond to maintain a building, you bond to build a building, and then you pay for it, you know, that way. That's the only thing.
The other things, you were just going to provide a list of where the other money where we spend money that's left out of your annual expenditure limit this one.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Mhm, mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
So I don't know if you guys saw this. This is what I want to try to find money in the budget through some savings where we can find money because I want to, and I think you're with me on this. I can't speak for you, but I want to fix roads in this
Yes.
county.
Yes, yes.
So I got this poll thing. It's unofficial. It's from K101. It says, what does Cochise County want most? Send us your little comments. This is an interesting little thing. So number one was internet service on the first one, right?
Yeah.
That was the first person.
Yeah.
Then it was,
Roads
you know, affordable housing, then roads. Oh, I keep, there's some on the back. Roads, homelessness, roads, internet service, roads, enforcing traffic laws, roads, border issues, roads and potholes, affordable housing, roads, beautify the county. I don't know what that means. Roads, affordable housing. All right. Pet and dog out of stores. Pets and dogs out of stores. That was,
It must be animals.
and then enforcing traffic laws. So almost, again, 4-1, 5-1. I know we're not, you and I were
I know.
out on the campaign trail. That's all I heard.
And I still,
And it's, and I look at Jason sitting over there and
And then like that Coronado Estates, I took they took me out there and we're doing roads where no one lives on based on the scam.
we gotta
Years ago.
find money to fix roads. I don't care how we do it, somewhere in this budget, we gotta tease out.
And Douglas bought an asphalt plant.
Mm-hmm.
So is that something, I mean, we'll talk later.
We got-
We have
but
some
that-
meetings on Friday with each of you separate to go over, just the road maintenance. how they're gonna get- how they get
Separate?
removed.
When I, can benefit from learning
We
the
have it.
questions.
We can do a work session.
Do you mind?
There is a public works work session already scheduled for later
But
this month. This was kind of a pre-briefing, so you can prepare
Well,
for that.
couldn't
work
it be a pre-briefing where I can learn off of the questions that he asked? Because that's how
We can do
I'm
this.
better at doing things
When is
because
that scheduled for them?
It's scheduled for this Friday, but we could shift it.
We can still post
you
it.
can still post it, right? It's-
And of course, Supervisor Crosby, you're welcome to come.
It's easy
So,
by
we weren't
online or
doing them.
in person. We could do a work session.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
We were
Friday's
trying
good
to
for me.
Work with
Friday, Friday, and that's at what time?
But I mean,
It's in the afternoon.
we'll talk
Okay.
and get a number. Obviously, we want to ramp up. You just can't, go up real fast. But we need to have
At noon.
At noon, okay.
we want to find more money to
You have
fix
to-
roads.
to make,
So,
Maybe it was at the,
And then with Frank was at, or Mr. Netroy was at 2:30.
so we
So-
can put them both at 2:30?
Yeah.
That would probably be nice.
okay, can we do 12
Can you do 12? We have the work session at 11:30.
I should be.
or 12:30? And I'll have to cancel one because I have something I have to do in the afternoon, but I think it's important because I need more knowledge and I learn a lot by the questions that he asks.
Let me,
See, and depending on his schedule.
I got too many calendars, man.
Chairman Antonori. We're scheduling a special executive session on 11:30 on Friday.
Okay, what?
Need special executive session?
We have to talk about the demand we just got from the Supreme Court yesterday.
Oh,
So, the meeting with you for Public Works, we could do it 12:30 if 12:30 works for you, Supervisor.
Well, that, right now she's got that scheduled from 11:30 to 12:30. That's what she's talking
So
about.
we're saying right after that.
So yeah, we could do that.
Okay.
12:30. It's a long day for us on Friday.
Eat your lunch early.
yeah.
Bring your lunch. Bring your lunch to work,
It's a
Dave.
brown bag work session.
But
Okay.
anyway,
So I hope you don't mind me, but I just feel like, you know,
shoot, we're
with
gonna-
me alone, I'm not going to be able to learn and know the kind of questions to
Mhm.
ask.
I understand. That's good feedback.
Yeah. Good feedback.
All right. So any further discussion? All right. So with that, the next meeting will be a special board meeting, the possible executive session held in the Board of Supervisor Executive Conference Room today, February 5th at 1 p.m. to discuss potential of future litigation involving the county and the Board of Supervisors. And without that, we'll adjourn.